Have you ever wondered if you're charging enough for your consulting or coaching? I know for sure I have. Maybe you're stuck pricing by the hour, or maybe you're discounting to win that work. If that sounds like you, you're in luck because in this episode, we're getting into how to confidently ask for your worth and get paid for it. And welcome to the Consulting Matters podcast. This is the show for consultants and coaches who are ready to own the power of what they do and position themselves for the clients, the impact, and the income that they are ready for. I'm your host, Betsy Jordyn, and I am a business mentor. I'm a brand messaging and positioning strategist. You can find out about all the things that I do to help my clients make more money through making a bigger difference on my website at www.betsyjordyn.com. And don't forget, Jordan is with a Y. So today, we're wrapping up on my series that I've been talking about in terms of the journey from service provider to strategic partner with a really important conversation, which is all about pricing, figuring out what the right price is and being confident in it and then asking for it. So, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because really, ultimately, this is the full expression of my overall brand and my show promise, which is all about owning the power of what you do. But the reality is for most of us, when it becomes to being asked for what you charge, like when somebody asks you, like, what do you charge or choosing a price for your offer, it's like a moment of dread, fear instead of confidence. But it doesn't have to be because my guest today is Karen Laos, who is a communication expert in what she calls a confidence cultivator. She is a popular speaker about pricing with confidence. And so she's going to show you how to ask your clients to work with you without hesitation and charge fees that reflect your worth without apology. So when you tune in, you're going to discover why pricing stirs up so much fear and angst in consultants and coaches, and how to discern if whether it's this is like a mindset thing or a value clarity thing that's holding back your pricing. Why undercharging crushes your confidence and actually shortchanges your clients, and how to make that shift from charging for your time to charging for value. And ultimately, what to say when a client pushes back when they say, your fees are too high. So, welcome to the show, Karen. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you, Betsy. Likewise.
Okay, so before we get into our whole topic around getting confidence in your value and asking for fees that reflect your worth, I want to talk about your background because your background's super interesting and I love your titles. So, I would love for you to share a little bit more about your background on how you became a what you call communication expert, but my favorite part, confidence cultivator.
Thank you so much. Well, it all started years ago when I was born. No, I'm just kidding. When I was 6 years old, but honestly, when I was 6 years old, my dad used to take me to flea markets, and he would say, "Go have fun." He'd hand me a few dollars, say, "Go have fun, but never pay full price." And I had no idea that you could negotiate. Obviously, at that age, I had no idea what that was, and that opened up this whole new world. And he always used to say, "The squeaky wheel gets the grease. You don't have if you don't ask." And I had that voice in me a lot, but then I also had my mom, where I think this is really important to share from context, that I was the last of 9 kids. She worked in the home, and I learned through her modeling that women don't have a voice,
Mm.
specifically in the home. And so it was a little bit confusing because she was a powerhouse in the community. My dad wouldn't let her work, which was awful. I used to be very frustrated by that as a kid, never understood it. But she in the home didn't have this voice. So I grew up with that confusion, and over time, of course, now many years later, looking back, going, okay, I understand what that is. And so fast forward to my career path, I was quite successful because I learned that, well, when you have, when you produce something, when you're there to accomplish something, then you add value, but you don't add value just being who you are. And that is something that I had to navigate and figure out over time, not till much later. And so, fast forward to when I was an executive in a boardroom and could not get the words out, it was really embarrassing because my boss shut down the meeting. And I just, I couldn't believe it. And she pulls me aside and she goes, "Karen, you didn't trust your gut." Like, she just said it so matter of fact. And I'm thinking one of two things, right? Or no, two things that I thought in that moment. One is, I could have tabled a meeting. I didn't know that was an option. And then secondly, why do I keep asking for permission? And what truly, the if you go even deeper into that story, I didn't agree with what she had suggested that I present, and that's why I couldn't get the words out. It's not because I wasn't able to present myself, it's because I was in that internal conflict. And so that was the day that I really set out to change and figure out what is at the root of my problem. And once I did that, it took a while through lots of personal growth work, but to get to this point where I realized, oh my gosh, I'm the one, I have agency. We all have choice. So I'm the one that's holding myself back. I really describe myself as being in a prison of my own making. And so when I realized how freeing it was to be able to get out of that, I wanted all women to be free and have that confidence. Now, thankfully, for years and pretty much my entire career was based on communication, specifically helping women with executive presence and frankly, all genders, but helping people deliver the best message they can in a memorable and unforgettable way through being succinct and clear. So, just the fact that when I left corporate in 2020, that's when I said, I'm going to focus specifically on helping women. And that's why I like to call myself a confidence cultivator because many of my clients say, you gave me the strategies, and that gave me confidence to walk into those conversations.
I have so many different directions I wanna take with this conversation. You gave me so many data points. Okay, so I just wanna stop so do you mind if I just, like, parse out everything you
Go
just said?
for it.
Okay. So one side I want to just get clear from my audience because my audience are consultants and coaches, and they've made that big leap from an executive role into a consulting or coaching business. So you did this 5 years
Mm.
ago. What kind of role did you have as an executive? Like, were you executive communications? You were in hospitality? Like, what was your official executive responsibility?
Yes. So I hired and trained all of our speakers and consultants specifically for a communications firm. We helped professionals speak with confidence and clarity in their executive presence and delivery, whether it was on a big stage at, say, for example, Google with their big live events, and then could also be an engineer that's trying to communicate across the table to someone else. So, exactly what I'm doing, I shouldn't say exactly, but the strategies and the tips are really the same thing. So, helping women be able to use their voice, specifically the mechanics of their voice, hand gestures, facial expressions, eye contact, all the body language, how we come across in our voice, but then also things like how to stop rambling and get to the point. As a recovering rambler myself, I taught myself a tip around that one.
Well,
So,
that must be hard for you. I'll just like feel bad for you from afar because I don't know anything about what you're talking about. Just kidding. uh, Okay, so so it sounds like then what you had is like you've always had this like communication background. You were working for a firm, and that firm you were doing recruiting and helping them like helping organizations like get speakers and that type of thing. Which makes sense because I think that's you do that for TEDx now too. Is like find speakers.
with TEDx, I don't look for the ski I coach the speakers.
Oh, you coach the speakers. Okay.
Yeah, so
So
same thing what I was doing before, which was yeah, I was essentially in charge of all of our facilitators and consultants that did the work helping other people communicate in their presence as well as their message, and I would also be on the stages and with clients myself.
interesting. So, okay, so I wanna get clear on one thing. It's like, so it sounds like you had a really fulfilling career with the firm. What was
I
it
did.
about the t well, like, 'cause I always have to ask people who became entrepreneurs because my audience, are some people are on the fence of, like, trying to make that leap into their own business. Like,
Yeah.
what was it like for you? Like, what got you to say, "This is cool. I've been doing this for a firm, but I wanna go do this for myself. I want my make my own thing." Like, what was it that made you decide, "I wanna do my own thing?"
Sure. Well, first I have to say that in 2003, I was in HR and left a role. I was head of HR for a company and left the first time to focus on my business in specifically at that time in career coaching. And then I realized, oh, this is a lot more work than I thought to market, to get clients and that kind of thing. And so I didn't last very long. And serendipitously, the Gap came back to me where I used to work in their corporate office and made an offer I couldn't refuse in leadership development and training. And then I was a consultant for them for years. Now, I bring that up because back in 2003, leaving, that's when I really got that. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always been very entrepreneurial minded and love business. But leaving there then throughout my entire so from 2003 to 2020, I had clients on the side all the time, in addition to working a full-time job. But I will tell you, the last 2 years of that role is when I really started feeling this itch of this place is expanding and I am constricting within this environment. And I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm just feeling like there is something more for me. And I would describe myself as a racehorse behind locked gates because it felt like I have all this energy to put towards something, but I can't fully embrace who I am here because we also had a strong non compete. So I had to be very careful about what I did outside of the company. But I will tell you, it was in September of 2019 that I put that stake in the ground, and now as a result of what I'm about to tell you, I created a model called the 3 Ds, which is how I then left and have taught other people, and that is that I put a stake in the ground to purchase a program related to helping more women get on stages through Jess Ekstrom, who is a woman I greatly admire. She has a program called Mic Drop Workshop. So I knew that I wanted to focus on my own speaking business, but I kind of pushed the dream aside for a long time. And this, if we think about anybody listening, just remember to follow that gut reaction that's within you to go do the thing that you want to do. Cause I had to ask myself, why do I keep putting this off? So 2019, I made a decision to leave in the next year of the end of 2020. And of course, COVID happened. So then I quit earlier. I had a big speaking engagement that I was able to do at the Phoenician Hotel in Phoenix, and I was all excited, like, "Phoenix, I'm rising." And then then COVID happens. But that speaking event gave me such confidence and just this fire within me because it was to a bunch of women, and I thought, "This is what I wanna do. I want more of this." So the 3 Ds, just in case you're curious, are
I was
declare
'cause
what
I'm guessing it's decision, dream, and something else. Like, what is it?
decide, declare, deliver. So
Oh,
decide that you're gonna do something, put that stake in the ground, and sometimes it is a financial investment or a time investment. And then secondly, tell everybody, declare it. Tell everybody, this is what I'm doing now so that everybody knows so then they can find you and have referrals to you. And then the third one, of course, is to deliver whatever you're doing or do it. That's another way I sometimes describe it.
I would add a D then the dream it first. So can I make it a
Yes.
40? You know,
Yes,
like
of
40.
course. Yes,
Uh,
it's so funny
y
because yeah, I had the dream for so many years that I was like, "I wanna declare this."
like, what I love about what you're talking about too, because I do because we do need to get into pricing because that is what the point of this particular episode's about, is it does feel like that there is a connection in terms of, like, charging your worth and asking for your worth that is connected to doing something that you actually are excited about doing. Like, I really wonder if a lot of times, like, people hold back. And this is something this is just you this is what I experience as a branding person, who is
Yeah,
helping people repackage their careers into a business, is that you did repackage your HR career into a business, and you could have maybe made that career coaching business a total success, but it doesn't have that same light you up passion as what you have
exactly.
here. And I think that that's like one of the things that I really force my clients to do in the very first phase of the work together is we need to declare clearly what is the right business for you. And that will get you over the hump because now you're in the correct direction rather than that what I call the should to ought to business. You created a should to ought to business that
Yes,
you didn't enjoy, and now you're in the right fit business, and so then you can get more confident because you're doing stuff you actually enjoy. Like, to me, that is the
absolutely.
secret to sustainable success.
You make such a beautiful point, Betsy, because in 2020, I made that decision as well, probably a few months after leaving my job and starting my own thing, that I wanted to reach 10 million women in 10 years. So I actually created a social initiative called 10 and 10, and it's going to culminate in 2030 at the Chase Center stage in San Francisco.
Ooh, you did a
So
BHAG.
here
You did what Jim
yes,
Collins calls a BHAG.
yes, absolutely, and it's so true how that energizes me every day, and then You know how it is when things are reinforced in the good, when people say, "Oh my gosh, that made an impact on me," or whatever it might be, then it continues to reinforce, "Yes, this is making a difference. Keep going," especially during the hardest days of all.
Yes. And I think that it's like when you're in the right zone, like that is when the right stuff attracts. But
Yeah.
I think even when people start getting into that, it's hard for people to figure out that zone. Like that's what I do all the time. But let's get into pricing.
Yeah.
Like,
Let
let's talk specifically because I know, like, what turned my head about you by the way, listeners, we just met on LinkedIn, like, a week ago. So, Karen had, like, liked a comment that I did. I saw, like, something that she did. I'm like, "I like you." And then I saw that she had posted something about, like, "I talk about, like, pricing and negotiations are my favorite things to talk about." I'm like, "I wanna have her on my show." We literally just met through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not a cesspool. If you unless in, like it's not a cesspool, it's an opportunity for you to meet cool people. So, just a
Betsy,
little sidebar.
I think that needs to be the lead to your or my next post. LinkedIn is not a cesspool.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be if you, like, are a human on it. Like, yeah, there's, like, gross salespeople. Like, I really get pissy. I wanna, like I really wanna correct everybody who sends me, like, those cold call things, and it's like, "Hey, I wanna meet you," and then there's a cold call. I'm like, "You don't wanna meet me." You know? Like, forget it. Like, "No, I don't want to." But anyway, so LinkedIn's not a cesspool. We met this way, but we're here to talk about pricing, and and I really wanna talk about, like, what is it about pricing? Like, the psychology of it, the experience of it, like, what is it about it that creates so much angst for consultants and coaches? I know you work with women primarily, but my clients are consultants and coaches are men and women, and they're at a
Yeah.
variety of different stages, and I would tell you, people who are just starting, pricing creates angst. People who are ready to level up, pricing creates angst. So what is it about pricing that is, like, such the "ugh" that people have?
I would say the first thing is that we weren't taught how to talk about money for most of us as kids. We all have a money story. And that's the thing that I would invite anybody to first think about is what is the money story that you had? How did you grow up? I grew up very frugally and I promised myself in high school that when I grew up, I would have nice things because my dad would duct tape the car together, for example. I mean, he worked on all of our cars. He was a railroad engineer. Like everything was about do it yourself. And so to this day, it's still hard for me to hire other people. Like I'm still working through some of these things. So I also want to be really full disclosure that I think there's always things that we can be working on. And so part of it is this anxiety of even being able to decide that part of it is are we open to owning our worth and then is it were we taught to actually be okay with pricing. There's so many emotions that go along with pricing, and so when we can separate the emotion and I had a wonderful coach years ago that gave great advice that I will never forget this because it was so helpful. He said, "People's ability to pay or not pay has nothing to do with your worth. It's all about how what either what they have literally to pay you, they may not actually have it, or it's probably even more importantly, it's what people see as the value." And he also used a great example that and he was from Tennessee, and he goes, "There are tons of trailer parks in the area where I live. And you know what else are in those trailer parks? Huge satellite dishes and really nice cars. People will find money for the things that they wanna pay for that they prioritize." So that's another thing to keep in mind because I've seen a lot of people lower their prices or adjust their pricing because they think that somebody can't afford it. And sometimes that might be true, but the truth is, I have seen, I had a client once that said, I want to work with you so much. I mean, she said, your rate is more than half of my paycheck per month, but I want to work with you so much because I know that it's going to change my life. Now, that was a huge compliment. I have to admit, I felt kind of guilty on the back end, like, please don't do that. Don't do that. There was a part of me that's thinking, don't put half of your paycheck on this. And yet, it was so interesting to me, the difference between that and then somebody else going, "Oh, I just don't have the money for that," and then they go out and buy other things. And so, I think this is also a good reminder for all of us that just decide what your prices are and stick to them, or if you're going to scale with but people's budget, and obviously it all depends on what people are selling and, there's so many factors involved, but the biggest thing that I've learned is being really clear that if you are going to work with someone's budget, then to make sure that you scale appropriately. You don't just lower your rates because, yeah, because you feel bad or you don't have the either the confidence, the courage, or the tools to be able to say what you need to say.
I think this is why I had Jack Phillips on the show a couple episodes ago where we talked about the ROI. And I think
Um,
that a lot of times where we're not seeing it is people are not if you see I'm just selling like coaching hours or workshops or packages or something along those lines or your time, you're thinking like your price is associated with what you're offering and you're not connecting the dots that really your pricing is connected to the transformation that your client is getting and that's where the ROI is. And so it's not about you, it's about your behavior changes. Like not your behavior changes, their behavior changes. And I think
growth.
a lot of times when people push back on the pricing where they don't invest, it's because it's their own anxiety. Like I find it interesting in my work is people who have a lot of anxiety where it's like around like helping them get clarity and confidence in their message. Like they'll
Mhm.
hesitate and wrestle and wrestle and wrestle because they know if they're going to do the work with me, that this is going to be like a moment of truth. Like I'm going to have to see my value. I'm going to step up. No
Yes.
problem signing it. Like I have a team who does visual branding a logo like, no problem. Like, they don't ask for like, payment plans on the logos, or the website design, they're like, "Cool." But it's like, oh, because I think it's a lot about the confidence in themselves. So I think that that's one part is, like, really getting clear. There is a little bit of, like, the mindset that you said in the money story, but there's also a logical thing on the clarity. It's a
Absolutely.
little mix of both.
Yes, yes, and probably because I work with so many people who have the that lack the confidence around how to communicate their value. So part of it is the internal work, and then a big part of it is and where I mean, I love both sides, the internal as well as the external, but sometimes it's a simple, "Oh my gosh, I would have never thought to say that." So a big part of the work that I do is give people the language and the phraseology to be able to walk into those conversations with confidence.
What's interesting too is like also looking at your money story and what did you learn about money and what did you learn about value? Like as you're talking about it, it's interesting as I've been on this kick on my podcast where it's like I've been honoring all these people who've influenced me and how I think about strategic partnerships and aligning yourself to create more value and that's how you make more money. But as you're talking about it, I'm like, oh, I learned this from my dad. Like, my dad was this,
Ah,
like and we like and I remember, like, before my dad was, like, this incredible shoe man. So my grandparents had, like, this chain of shoes all around Chicago, and my
wow.
dad was, like, the worst businessman. Like, he was a horrible businessman. He took one of the stores and, like, like, went straight bankrupt on that, but he was a great salesman. And
Oh,
so he wound up,
wow.
like, in sales, and when he died, his entire funeral was filled with all of his customers. Like, and I
Oh
saw
my
customer after
gosh.
customer and when he died, I before he died, not when he died, before he died, when you're in all of the deep talk time when you have a parent who's dying, it's like, okay, I am like, I want to understand like what is your philosophy around
Mm,
sales because I want to like capture it. And this is what he told me what he does. So when let's say somebody comes to the store and they said, I want to get like a work pump or something like that. So he's like, I pay really close attention to the person and what they're like, their style. And then he's like, I never come out with just the work pump or what they asked me for. I always come back with like tons of other options in opposing categories. Like I might get him a strappy
mm.
sandal for something fun. I might get him like a flat, and that all relates. So people might come in for one shoe and they come out with four. And and it's like, so that's how he makes more money, and his clients love him because he really paid attention to them. They felt seen, like, why people kept
Oh,
going back to my dad is because he made them feel, like, cared for and known and all of that kinda stuff, and I
oh,
think that this is the behi this is where the root like, I didn't make the connection as clearly until you said it here. This is how I make more money is it's about creating value. But the problem that I have is sometimes, like, I keep wanting to add more value, but I don't always, like, increase, like, I just keep wanting to, like, "You can get this, and you can get this, and I'll do this for a bonus." So it's like, how do you have so anyway, that's a secondary question, but the first one is, like, I think there is a money story behind all of us that goes beyond just the immediate. So what are some tips or reflection questions that somebody could ask to say, "Now, where can I tap into, like, my history, good, bad, otherwise, of, like, what actually helps me from a confidence in my pricing and what's hindering me?" Like, what are reflection questions that you would offer to my audience?
one would be as simple as, "What did I learn from my parents about money?" And it doesn't mean that they taught you something specifically. Like I will say with my parents, they didn't, they were actually very private about their finances. It was interesting. My mom used to do the taxes on the table, and she had all of the forms out, and when we would walk through the kitchen, she'd kind of go, well, like there was basically an assumption you don't look at the table, and so they didn't specifically say, "Here's what you need to do with money, and here's how you invest." That is definitely not what they taught us. And yet they taught us through modeling, especially about the frugality piece of getting the best deal and buying all the toilet paper and all the Kleenex or whatever. So think about the things that they explicitly taught you and then also the things that you learned that you didn't even realize. So that can be one thing is just simply to reflect on that. And then a way to get there in a deeper way too is to go, what was it like when I was with my parents and we were at the store, even whether it's a grocery store or another store, and just start noticing. It's so good to just start going, what was it? What was their relationship with money? What did they value? What did they buy? And or what did they save? Or did they save it all? Those all of those things can really help a lot. And I would say that's a good place to start. And then things that just start unraveling that I think are so fascinating. For me, part of my story is that I had to break the ties of feeling like if I'm considered somebody of means or wealth, for example, which is not how I grew up, that that is almost abandoning my family of origin. And that was a challenging thing to work through, or just not even challenging. It was more, I had no idea that was going on for me. So almost hanging on to, well, I'm going to be in the bargain basement because that's where, the down to earth people are. And even being able to see that, it's actually possible to be a down to earth, relatable, approachable person and make a lot of money. And for me, I wanna make a lot of money because I wanna help a lot of people, not because I'm after money. It's about what money can do. So that's another thing too is I would invite people to say, what if you like with your pricing, like what will money enable you to do? As maybe obvious as that sounds, why do you wanna make money in the first place?
Yeah, I think it's, like, really it's because I think that a lot of people when they hit the top of their profession and it's like, "Alright, I hit success, now I want significance." And it's like, I
Mhm.
feel like I have to choose, like, I can't have both. And it's like, you can have
Right.
both, but it's like, you do need to be careful about, like, just money for no apparent reason. Like, I remember when I first started my consulting business, my intention was to be with my kids when they were young, and so I made a lot of money and I had a lot of pressure from male mentors who were like, "Double your revenue, double your revenue." I'm like, "I don't
Mhm.
why am I doubling my revenue?" My point is I wanted time freedom at that stage was more important, and it's like, it's really figuring out, like, what's the energy of money supposed to do for you? Like, maybe you're supposed to be the steward that is going to give a lot of money away. Maybe you don't need as much money, as you think you do because money used to be status in your old world. And
Mhm.
so I think that there's a lot of stuff in there. I think I would add one reflection question to your list of questions is,
Yeah.
like, when you think about, like, what's your money story? What did you learn what from your parents and your family of origin, like, plus or minus, and what are you projecting on your clients and how they're thinking about the money? Because
That's
from
great.
my
Yes.
standpoint, what I think I do when I put the pricing in front of my clients is I'm not asking them to invest in me. I'm asking them to invest in themselves and their future vision. And so that's where it's like they have to they're putting their intention, what you said, decide and declare. Like, you
Yeah.
decide and declare is when you invest in it. And I think that's where they have the hesitation. And when we're consultants and coaches who are helping people with transformation, we have to understand the fear of the unknown that our clients are having that literally has nothing to do with the pricing. You could put a package
Totally.
for $2,000 in front of a client, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, and the emotions are the same. Like, even if you keep discounting it down to like $500, would you spend $500 on this? Like, because
I
if I put
know.
money in it, you're like, now I'm in it.
Exactly. Yes, yes, it's so true. It's so interesting, isn't it? Because we can only be in our own heads. We can make assumptions about others. We can obviously ask questions to understand, which of course I would highly recommend. But at the end of the day, we default to these mores or things that the way we operate. And we often don't think about, like, I remember somebody who told me, and I think because of my dad as the flea market guy and all the things of negotiating, I just have always loved the deal. And for me, it's really fun to make a deal. And whether it's at a garage sale, for example, I remember having that realization many years ago, or negotiating for a car in a car lot. But this idea of just, is it the deal that you're more excited about? And the part about just the, I don't know what it would almost like the game. I hate to say it for lack of a better word. Or is it truly, okay, we're exchanging a price here? And like, I don't know what I was going to say. I got off target. That somebody said to me once, Karen, there are people that don't care about a discount. They don't value a discount. They actually might think that a discount cheapens the product or the service. And that was mind blowing to me because I grew up with, you got to get the deal. You got to get the deal. Everybody loves a deal. And that was fascinating, even to consider that there are people out there that really don't care about that. So that was one example where I was blown away by how different we can be.
Well, and I think too, it's like there is different ways that people think. Like I had one of my worst clients ever. I he came from a referral who somebody I really had to kind of please. This is when I was in my consulting days. And he just
Mm.
wanted me to he just kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me to get my pricing down just for the
Um,
sake of, he wants the deal. Like he needed to win. If I started if
wow.
I had if I offered it if I knew this psychology about him, if I had
Mm,
the price at $100,000 and, like, let's say I really wanted it to be 80,000 and I put it at 100,000 and then he, like, bang, like, kept pressuring me to get it done to 80,000, he would have felt like he walked away with a deal. Like, so some of it just because he just needed to get the deal. And
yeah.
but somebody kinda pressures you that way. He was the worst client I've ever had. Like, his
Oh,
name is Kent,
no.
and I but he got me my fire to start marketing, and it's like I really started, like, marketing harder because I had a mantra, like, "I need to replace Kent because he was just as bad, and I think that sometimes when you have a client who is not valuing you in the sales process, they're not
Ugh,
going to value you in the coaching engagement or
right.
the consulting engagement, and so that is, like, important data points, like,
Mhm.
I think that there's 2 sides of it is, like, my money story is having an experience with somebody else's money story, and we have to see, like, does our money stories kinda match? And then the other thing, I'm going to proclaim something on the show with you as my witness for the first time. I have decided I want to write my first book, and I wanna write it on the heroic journey of starting your own consulting or coaching business because I see that this is something like the tactics of, like, building a business and working through the pricing isn't just about the business, it's a healing thing for yourself. Like, I think that's a
Mm,
lot of the stuff that you're talking about is this is all the playground of this other work that you're going through.
yeah.
And I think that that's, one set of questions I wanted to get with I wanted to ask you, but I think we're kinda getting there is what's on the other side. I think on the other side of really dealing with your money the pricing issue isn't just about, like, how much money am I gonna make, how many deals am I gonna land, but it's really a different kind of, like, transformation of your own money crap, and your own issues. Would you concur with that?
Exactly. Oh my gosh, yes. Well, and I was thinking about, can I share an example that's of something that came out of my mouth that surprised me during a deal? If it's okay. I I wasn't sure where you wanted to take this next, but I was on a call where I had pitched my no, I wasn't pitching in the moment. I had already mentioned in advance, like I was introduced, it was a referral, corporate business person wanted to, an HR person who wanted to have me coach their CFO. And she was looking at a few coaches, and then when I said my price, because she asked, of course, "Well, what do you charge?" And then when I said, she goes, "Oh," like, well, there was definitely a dramatic pause, and then we're all taught that you're supposed to wait and be the one to not speak first, but I often will wait for a little bit, and then I have found what has been successful for me is to say, "How does that land for you?" Because I find that that question gives people permission to share how it lands, and I've found people very transparent rather than often what we do is we say our price, we're taught to pause, then move on, and we don't know really how they thought about it unless they for sure say yes, but oftentimes it just goes away and we never hear from them again or they ghost us or who knows what. But in this case, it was such a really fun exchange because she said, "Wow, well, that's definitely a much higher price point than the other coaches we were looking at." And I don't know what hit me in that moment, Betsy. This is not a phrase that I had planned, but I just said, "I recognize I'm higher than most." And that's it. And so to me, that was this moment where I thought, "Oh my gosh, I've started to embody this confidence now." And this was years ago. And how exciting was, and then I said after that, "Is this a deal breaker?" And she said, "Absolutely not. I believe in the right fit, that we can work something out." So it also depends on the person that you're talking to on the other side. And a lot of times we don't know that until we say a thing or two in the conversation and they respond. Like in this case, it could have been somebody else that said, "No way, we don't have budget." And then that's it. Or it in her case, it was, "Let's collaborate. Let's figure this out. I'm sure there's a price we can agree to." And the beautiful thing when she came back to me, I just have to say one more thing just to close the whole loop here, is that she said, "Here's what I've got. How do we need to scale your services for that?" And they only came down a few thousand. So it was not it was still very a very respectable amount. And the beautiful thing is how considerate she was to even say, "What do we need to scale back to do it for this price? Because that's what I have." It was a beautiful exchange.
And I think it's, like, the way you showed up, like, I think clients, when they're investing in somebody, they wanna hear, like, "I know exactly how to help you." Like, "I'm here and it's not even about my price, like, I know exactly how to help you." Like, there's that phrase where, like, "I'm not rich enough to go cheap on anything." And I think that by having the confidence, like, this is it's not really about the price, it's, like, it's having that confidence that there's a price value and that I'm gonna
Mhm.
get a bigger return. I
Yeah.
had see, you and I are so alike, it's so crazy. And by the way, did you know I have, like, a master's in HR, you know? Like, and that's my background. It's like HROD is, like, my background. It's like we have a lot of similarities. But anywho, um, so I had a similar thing. So when about 15 years ago, I had launched, like, my first big business, my consulting business. My new amazing website was out. I got a lead, like, right after that. And I had a client who came from a referral, and I think something about, like, working on the website, like, really changed my confidence about, like, the value what I did. And they handed me a so it's for this executive development program or like a workshop. They handed me my competitor's proposal and said, "Meet it or beat it." You know, if you could meet it or beat it, the job is yours. So at that time, it was like a 2-day workshop for like 7,500 was my competitor.
Yeah.
And I looked at what was on the competitor. I'm like, this is not the right solution. Like their client is not going
Mhm.
to get any value. So I put together a proposal like this is actually going to solve your problem because all they were looking at is like what was the need, the request, like the workshop.
Mhm.
I was asking questions around like, well, what's the point of this? And they're like, well, we're not, this was like the 2010-ish time period. Like, we're not growing anymore from organically, we're growing from mergers and acquisitions. Like, we need executive talent on tap to put into these new acquisitions that so that we could further that. I'm like, well, that's a different conversation. So I put a proposal together to achieve that goal. So I think at that time, I think my that initial proposal was like, I don't know, I wanna say like 35,000, maybe 40, I don't remember. Very different from what the initial
Yeah.
one was. And the client was like, "Oh my gosh, are we gonna, like, have to break the bank to work with Betsy?" Something came over me in that moment, and I think this is where the pricing confidence came in is like, "Hey, that other guy is an expense to be managed. Like, I'm an investment that will deliver a return." And they signed immediately. It was like, bam. They're like and then they signed up for a second one, and then they referred me to another company who was needing the same
Oh
type of
my
thing, and,
gosh.
and that's when my business really started kicking off, and so when people say like, "Oh, websites make no difference." I'm like, you're wrong. Like, first off, the website made a difference because when I boldly stood in front of them, I had a website to back me up with a bunch of testimonials and, like,
Uh-huh.
I had my credibility there. But the process of working through, like, my copy and what I was all about, I got the confidence from within, and that's what gave me the confidence. So I think, like, pricing when people do pricing and they put it outside of the entire ecosystem of what you're doing, I think that's when it's a problem. Like, when you treat
Yeah.
pricing like a salary negotiation, like I have a job, rather than I'm a business owner who sells services that happen to be consulting or coaching related, that creates a remarkable value. And then you have the confidence to say, "No, I'm here to get a return. I know you don't I know I'm optional. Everything we
Yeah.
do is unless you're, like, subcontracting for something that's in an organization, everything we do is optional." So,
Yeah.
we have to be able to connect the dots, like, and I think that's where the confidence comes in, like, "I know exactly how to help you. I have
Yeah.
the exact right solution. I know this will work." And then if they push back, maybe your fees are too high. Maybe it's that they're just not ready to invest in themselves. And then you
Mhm.
have to respect that. Like I was mentioning, like I want to write a book. I have to, if I'm really going to write a book, I probably should invest in a book coach of some kind. By the way, if you're a really good book coach, and you have something, I'm just giving you little hints that I'm an ideal client that you might want to reach out to. But anywho, uh, but you put this growth container, that is what we provide, is a lot of times, like, I think with your mastermind, it's a growth container for people who really
Yes.
wanna
Yes.
level up their impact and their voice and their income, like, that's a
Mhm.
growth container. I think you call it, like,
Yes.
powerhouse or power
The
something.
powerhouse. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
powerhouse. It's
Yeah.
not about like, people are not paying for how many sessions they get,
Mhm.
the resources that
Mhm.
they're providing, or even access to you. They're
Mhm.
spending money on the container.
Yes. Yes. That's a beautiful way to say it. So true. So true.
Can we get into one thing real quick about
Yeah.
pricing models?
Of course.
One of the things that you and I chit-chatted back and forth on before we had this call is how much we are not fans of the trading time for money model, and how we're more into the pricing for value. Um, so tell me about, like, why do people trade time for money in this field, and what's the limitation of it, and how do you get into, like, different ways of thinking about how you are pricing in terms of more value?
Oh, it's such a prominent question, and it is amazing how so many of us are just I feel like this is where we can often get stuck. And I mean, I'm actually curious from your perspective, Betsy, if I could throw it back at you because I want to answer this question, but I'm curious, what do you mostly see with your clients with some of these challenges?
What I feel like that I deal with, hence the name of my book,
Yeah.
is I feel like people haven't made the complete transition from employee to business owner. And I think that there's an employment model and I do work and I get compensated for it. Like I get, even if you're a salaried worker, you're still
Mhm.
your compensation is still tied to time,
Yeah.
and it's still tied to like activities. And so I think a lot of times, like, this is why I'm passionate about what I do is I provide that growth container in between like your career and your business so that you can kind of like work through those issues so that you can come out on the other end. But I will tell
Mhm.
you, 9 out of 10 business coaches will just tell you, you don't have to waste time. There's no ROI and clarity and clarity and confidence in what you do. There's no ROI. That's squishy. And they'll say, just go out and get clients. And it's like that
Mhm.
is not a sustainable strategy. Like, yes, you
Right.
can just go out and work your network to go find a potential job person, like a potential employer. That is not a sustainable hustle kind of thing. And you're going to wind up recreating your career and your job, and then you're going to hate your work. And then you're going
Mhm.
to charge it like you did when you were an employee. You'll negotiate instead of having like the conversation that you had around like, okay, how do we reduce scope in order to have an equitable energy exchange? Because that's really what
Mhm.
pricing is. Pricing, what I've
Right.
learned in my years at Disney, is like pricing is about price value. What I get and what I pay for and what I get is like equal. Like I get,
Mhm.
like that's an equity thing. And there's a difference in the kind of conversation that you said you had is like, "Hey, how do I wanna work with you, but this is too high, can we reduce the scope?" And
Yeah.
that's a different kind of discussion than a salary negotiation. I want you to pay me
Yeah.
$200,000, you want to pay me 150,000, let's meet in the middle at 175, and so now
Mhm.
that's why I think people get stuck in that one, and then they don't know
Yeah.
another way, and then they start having these panic attacks of like, "I should already know how to do this, like, I can't break out of this
Yes.
because now I gotta, like, break now I don't feel confident anymore, so I'm just gonna keep doing the
Mhm.
same thing over and over again."
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I do think it's the system of and not to be the one that, like, blames the system because I don't believe that we need to be victims of anything, but it's looking at, like, what how do most people look at it? And because it's different to we have to educate our clients or potential clients and really being able to say, would it matter? Like, if I could solve this problem for you in 5 minutes, I mean, let's just say, like, if we look at, I don't know, a health coach or something that says, I can solve your health problem in 5 minutes, but would you rather pay me per hour? I mean, it's so interesting to me because sometimes a client will get the result that they need in much less time, but in their mind, they think, yeah, but I haven't spent the entire amount of hours. So I do think that it's a huge psychological thing to help people get over, but this is where it comes back to communication. How good are we at communicating our value to help them understand the ROI? And if we're not, if we just kind of, and I'll admit that I would call it a little bit lazy sometimes of it traditionally when I have charge per hour, it's like, and I think going back to in jobs that I've had where it's okay, I'm billed out for X amount of hours. And then we're sitting there going, okay, we've got 10 more minutes in this session, where it just feels like we've already accomplished what we need to. We don't need to sit there. It's like elongating a meeting when you've already accomplished the purpose of the meeting. But it
Yeah.
is fascinating to me how it is such a what if it's like that pushing the boulder up the hill that we have to be as savvy as possible in helping other people understand. Like, here's and why it's the value over the hours. But people are, I think it's also really important because I have a very, how should I call it? Just very matter of fact friend who's head of sales for a company. And she said, Karen, I don't care how much you talk about value. Any CEO is going to be dividing that amount by the amount of hours that, that we're talking about or months. And they're not, it's just so interesting. So that is a good I feel like I hold that in the back of my head that yes, that is true. And at the same time, we can't be focused on that, like, energetically almost, even though I don't always talk about, like, the energy of things, but it's focusing on helping people see, here is the direction that we could be going, and this is how this is gonna serve you more. And it's that that classic, I don't know if this was a true story, I feel like I've heard it in different formats, but
Are you gonna tell the Henry Cloud I mean, not Henry Cloud,
the
Henry, Ford.
is it well, I was thinking about that's the I first time I heard it was a ship, there was something broken on a ship and the ship couldn't go, so they call this guy, he comes in and spends, yeah, like 5
A minute.
seconds,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever it is, and then they
Yeah.
get this invoice for thousands of dollars, "You were only here for a minute." It's like, well, that's how long it took. I mean, it was just I feel like that's such a good demonstration of that.
But think about this, though. So, like, in terms of the client's best interest, you're if you charge right so basically what they're saying is a junior person who does not have your years of experience should actually be worth more because it takes them longer to achieve the same result that you did because of your expertise. And so, I think for there's a couple pivot points for me what I help my clients with, and I'm starting this group coaching program called the Impact and Income Accelerator. It's all around like teaching this like
Ooh.
partnership setup approach. But what I call it in the discovery meeting is the pivot, where you move the client from wants to needs. And you get them to articulate very clearly what it is that they're trying to achieve, not the methodology, but their goals and the value of achieving their goals. They articulate it. And then you could say, well, what's the incremental value I'm bringing to the table? If you can make that shift, then you have more of the permission to look at values-based fees. If a client asks you, like, "I want you to design and deliver X," and you say,
Mhm.
"Sure thing, I'll do," whatever it is, they're putting you in that service provider, so they're comparing service provider to service provider, but you
Mhm.
can change the conversation by
Yes.
changing the conversation. You have to change the conversation and then
Mhm.
you can start establishing it. One of the things I say to my clients when I'm on intro calls is like, you're not paying for my time because, like, especially when you're dealing like with the work I do, like, because there's so much clarity, and this, like in the work you do as well, it takes a little
Yeah.
while. Some people like they can get to ideal client clarity or they can get into clarity on their strengths or that kind of thing like that. Some people it
Uh-huh.
takes longer. So
Uh-huh.
my job is
Mhm.
as long as you hang with me in the work, you're paying for the outcomes. You're not paying for my
Yes.
time. You're
Yes.
not paying for my time. I have no interest in paying for
Mhm.
your time. That's why you have access to me between sessions because I want you to have your questions answered. And I
Uh-huh.
think that that's the mindset. To me, the game changer around the pricing is like, I see the value. I can connect the dots between what I do and the outcomes. And I recognize my client is not investing in me, they're investing in these outcomes, and they're just putting
Mhm.
faith in me that I could get them there. Like, and that's where the
Mhm.
communication comes in. Can we talk
That's
about
smart.
the communication? I know you and I could talk to you
Yes.
forever, but I don't wanna leave without tapping into your communication expertise. So it's like a lot of the stuff we've been talking about is the mindset, the ROI
You sure
mindset,
are.
but it's like,
Right,
what's the
Bob?
communication strategies? Like, what
Mhm.
do you s so we already talked about, like, what do you do if somebody says, like, "What are the fees?" If your
Yeah.
fee's too high, but what do you say ahead of time to say, like, "Here's what my pricing is." You've said a couple other tips that are amazing, like, "How does this land?" and that type of thing. Amazing. What else would you say from a communication standpoint?
I would recommend, first of all, with the mindset piece, I want to finish on that, just say one other thing around it, like getting comfortable practicing. So, thinking about it also from a communication standpoint, is practice the conversation with somebody else, record it on video, watch it back so that you can see and hear. Because ultimately, you've got to own your pricing. And owning it to me really means that you embody that feeling of this is what I know to be true. I'm not going to be wavering or waffling, and if you are going to adjust your fees in the moment, then be darn clear in advance of how you're going to do that. And one of the best examples I'll give you, one very specific, and I've used this a lot. And ultimately, the bottom line is be a partner with your client and collaborate, just like you did with that example where you saw what their need was. But you don't really know what that is until you have that conversation. And that's where it's also challenging when people just go, well, what is your price? Now, I don't want to shy away from price, but I do think that there is often an education that people need before they get there. Otherwise, they will immediately close themselves off to that opportunity. So, for example, most of what I do is keynote speaking. Somebody, I was on the call, well, they always ask, I shouldn't say they, many people ask your rate on an email. And then, of course, the next step, so this is my first strategy, is to make sure that you get them on the phone whenever possible. And even to just say, I would really love, before we talk about fees, I'd love to understand what you're looking for because I don't know yet what problem you're truly trying to solve. And until we get on the phone, would that work for you? Then we get on the phone. I'm thinking about this one in particular. So she immediately, right at the beginning, just said, okay, can you just tell us your fees? And I said, I promise you I'm not shying away from the fee, but I truly do want to understand more. So then I said, could we start by talking about the event? And then I promise I will tell you my fee. And based on what your needs are. So we start talking, we start getting building a relationship, building trust very quickly. By the end of this conversation, I had helped them with which speakers to choose, how much to the and even just collaborating on the fact of making sure that it's equitable. I mean, it was so interesting to me because the simple act of building the relationship made such a difference. And I said, "Well, here's what I charge based on what you're saying. And if I know you want to bring in these other two speakers. It sounds like we could all mesh beautifully." My big thing, and I was very honest too, I said, "The only thing that I would ask is that we are all paid equally based on our expertise." In other words, I said, "I think it would be very hard for me to be at that event knowing that someone else was paid more than me when we're offering a similar value set." So that is one of the examples that I would offer. And think about them as a partner and a collaborator rather than, ooh, I have to tell them my fee and there's all this fear and anxiety around it.
I think that like, I feel like you did the strappy sandals, like my dad's strappy sandals example, you know? Like, yeah, they might have asked for a pump, but you're like, I could also help you figure out your speakers, like strategize your event, so you're like, you're making more or making a better relationship because you really paid attention is like, "Oh, I know you want heels for work, but you also want strappy sandals," you know? Like,
Mhm. I
I
love
think we
that.
I think we could use this as a thing, like the strappy sandals,
Yeah,
approach.
I think and your story about your dad, that's so brilliant. And I used to sell shoes back in the day in high school.
Oh,
So
shut
I
up.
remember that we were taught to bring out other options.
That's our, like,
J C
more stuff
Penney.
in common. Um, What I also love about you're talking about too is like I really believe in the partnership, and it's like if I can show up as a partner from the beginning, like it changes the whole conversation because it's not about pricing.
Yes,
And I would
exactly.
like, one of the things I'll teach people in the accelerator, they'll talk all the time when I help my clients one-on-one through, like, their proposal stuff is, like, you never ever talk about pricing in the discovery meeting. You have your proposal, you have to, like, go away and think about it, and the way I handle it is I would say, you know, I what I wanna do is make sure I come up with the exact right solution that's gonna knock it out of the ballpark for you that represents, like, a tremendous ROI and equitable compensation for me. Let me go away and think about exactly what I would recommend, and then we'll talk about the pricing. It's too premature because I don't know exactly what you need yet, and you don't know exactly what you need. And so that's where we take that break, and we figure that out. All right, you and I have been talking for a long time, and I know we gotta like close this thing up, and I don't want to, but we do have to. Uh, so we talked about a lot of things from about pricing, from mindset, strategy, communication. Is there anything else that you want to share with me? And I'm just not asking you the right question.
Oh, thank you. I would say the biggest thing is to trust yourself, just for anybody listening. Really know that whatever you offer, just you have value for, and what you're offering has value. So don't undercut yourself. Really be mindful. Trust what you know you need to say and do, and go after it.
Perfect. All right, tell me more. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. Tell them about your free guide. Tell them about your powerhouse mastermind that's coming up in January.
All the things, all the things. So, number one, my website is a great place to reach me and learn more, and that's KarenLaos.com. That is Laos, like the country. And I am on Instagram and LinkedIn almost daily. So you can find me there, Karen Laos Official on Instagram, Karen Laos on LinkedIn. And I do have for those of you that are wondering if you have anything in your language that might be giving away your power, such as things like words like just and little. I just want to share a little tip with you versus I want to share a tip with you. I have a PDF guide for anybody that is free on my website to learn more about those 9 words to avoid and what to say instead. And then, yes, I also have a podcast for anybody that would like to listen called Ignite Your Confidence. And that is for women in leadership primarily, but the concepts are universal to all genders. And lastly, the Powerhouse is a mastermind specifically with 12 women max. And that is coming up in the new year, somewhere in the, not even sure exactly when we're going to launch it yet, but probably at the end of January. And that's a 6-month program to help you to negotiate, speak with power, and lead with presence.
Amazing. So it feels like from an action standpoint, everybody, you've got like a couple different options of how you want to like really level up in this particular area. Definitely, if you really want to build the confidence from the inside out, like Karen's program seems like perfect for you, especially if you're a woman in leadership or as an entrepreneur. You could definitely check out my Impact and Income Accelerator if you're looking for right now help to level up your impact and your fees and so much more. Definitely check that out on my website, the accelerator. But I think that what we're saying, what Karen and I are both saying that we would want to leave you with is that the first sale is really to yourself, and then you can convey
Yes.
it to other
Oh
people.
my gosh. Yes.
And that's what I think that really at the end of the day, so whatever it takes for you to make sure that the using the D's, like making sure that you're dreaming the right dream, you are making decisions about it, you are declaring that this is what you want to do. And the fourth D I just lost.
Do it, deliver
Do
it.
it. Deliver it. Like, that's what it all begins, but I think it all begins with, like, what's the right business for you? Don't settle for the stupid shit to ought to business. Don't
Yes.
sell yourself short. Uncover your money story, where you might be doing it, and really go after the impact and the income that you're capable of without apology and without, like, just holding back. And I think that's what both of us are on that shared mission. So, I
Mhm.
think did I
Yes, 100%. I
awesome.
love it. I love it.
So that is it for today's show. If you enjoyed it, please definitely, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. I'd love for you to rate or review it so that more consultants and coaches can find it. And until next time, thanks so much for listening. So here's my take. Pricing confidence doesn't start with mindset alone. It actually begins with the numbers, and the ROI mindset. So, this is why I got so excited about bringing Jack Phillips on the show back in episode 131, because the reality is the first sale's always to yourself. And that starts with connecting the dots between what you do and the outcomes your clients get. Because your clients aren't ultimately investing in you, they are investing in their own behavior changes, their team's behavior changes that creates new outcomes for their businesses, their organizations, and their careers. So I want you to think about a couple things. I want you to just ponder a couple questions. Where are you undervaluing yourself right now and what's it costing you and your clients? Are you clear on the transformation your clients get from working with you? And when you look at your current pricing in terms of the actual fee and your approach to pricing, does it reflect the value that you create or fear? All of this is exactly what we're going to be diving into and helping you nail inside the Impact and Income Accelerator. So, I've been talking about my brand new 8-week group coaching program that is designed to give you literally everything you need to make that shift from transactional service provider to transformational strategic partner that allows you to 10x your fees because you are 10xing your impact, starting with your very next client opportunity. So, if you're thinking about this group, it starts October 14th, so we're down to the wire. So if you're interested, book a call with me and let's chat about it. So you can learn more and apply at www.betsyjordyn.com/accelerator. One last thing about the accelerator too, it is a free bonus for my private clients. So if you've been on the fence about working with me, this is the time to sign up. So that's it for today's show. I'm not going to get into the accelerator anymore about pricing. I just hope that you walk away with just more of sparks of insight about really the value of what you create. So thank you so much for tuning in today. If this episode was helpful, make sure you subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And I'd love it if you would leave a quick rating and review so that it can help other consultants and coaches find the show as well. So until next time, thanks so much for listening.